Right then, so welcome back to another Q&A Thursday with myself, Ola and Jacob. And this week we're actually joined with Heather, who works with Mustang as a videographer. So that's really exciting. And this week we're going to be talking about how lockdown has affected businesses. And we've actually interviewed a few local business owners to find out about their experience, which you'll find out about towards the end of the video. So to start with, I'm pretty sure we've all experienced our own problems during this really difficult time. And unfortunately, some of these issues will stay with us for a long time. In particular, the business world has seen a huge change, which is consequently going to affect the UK's economy, as well as other countries. And lockdown has created challenges for companies, both big and small, which may have long-lasting effects. And I'm sure you've probably seen on the news, there's many big names which have now gone into administration due to the effects of lockdown. Some of these including Debenhams, Carluccio's, Laura Ashley and Victoria's Secret. So Jacob, do you want to talk about how, which industry has been hit the hardest?
Yeah, well, I should say a lot of big businesses have suffered quite a lot during this lockdown. And one of the main industries that have struggled is the food and service industry. Obviously, They rely on people coming in and, having the food being waited on. So it's a lot of personal contact. So because of government guidelines and social distancing, they've obviously struggled. Before the lockdown even began, they saw a 10% fall in customers. Obviously, this was because the lead up, there was fear that, this virus is about. And then 2 weeks after the lockdown, this figure rose to 69%. Now, this just shows how bad it was for them and how many customers were too afraid to actually go to restaurants and bars. And this loss of income for businesses, this is going to be a long-term problem, and it's going to stick with them for a while, and they might not recover to how they were before. Although, some restaurants and bars are allowed to open on the 4th, the numbers are going to be limited again because of these guidelines. So this again is difficult for businesses to become how they were. Even if they are allowed to open, they can't open fully and provide the same services they could do. But some positives have come out of this lockdown. Obviously, when it was announced, businesses had the decision to either close or provide delivery services. Now, businesses have taken advantage of this, and some businesses have provided delivery service because there was a rise in people expecting takeaway services to be more popular. So obviously some businesses have adapted to this and they've actually been quite successful. So you guys in the chat, do you have any ideas about what the future for the food industry could be? Do you think, will they return to the new normal, to how it was, or do you think they'll have to adapt to this coronavirus and adapt to how, the world is now with social distancing? And what do you guys think?
Well, I think with the food industry, I think especially with, independent restaurants and cafes where obviously they don't do delivery, they are going to find it the hardest. Whereas the big companies who do offer delivery, especially takeaways, like you said, it's going to be not as hard for them. Obviously, it's still difficult for everyone because of social distancing, and in the industry which, is food, it's all about keeping the hygiene, and obviously that's sometimes hard on a normal time, but now there's all these extra measures which might make it that bit more difficult, and especially when people have to be working together. But yeah, I do think in the future, I think we'll see many different changes, but I hope that it won't affect it too much.
Yeah. Well, personally, I think that delivery services, I think they're going to increase. I think the market for takeaways is growing, and people are going to take advantage of that. Um, I also think that now with coronavirus, I think people are going to expect higher hygiene like standards. I think people are going to expect cleaner restaurants. And expect restaurants to have the same level of hygiene that customers have. So
Yeah.
I think that will be something that restaurants and that will have to focus on in the future. As I say, if you're watching, please leave a comment. Please tell us what you think. What do you think will happen to industries in the future? Do you think they'll have to adapt? Do you think they'll have to change anything? But are there any other industries that are struggling during this time?
Well, I think we all know now that the travel industry has, experienced a huge impact from lockdown and pretty much nearly came to a standstill. There were a few flights going back and forth, but the majority were cancelled and postponed. But Turkish travel actually experienced one of the hardest hits and had a loss of 4.6 million, which has most likely increased since then. And the decrease in tourism has also resulted in job losses. That's all around the world. But for example, like Vegas, where, they rely on tourism for people to come to the restaurants, the casinos, and that can't happen right now. So that's why it's resulted in job losses, which is obviously really unfortunate. And there was an interview with someone called Johan Lundgren, the chief executive of EasyJet, and he said that this is the biggest crisis aviation has ever gone through. And most of the employees are on furlough at EasyJet. And he said that it's vital to keep in touch with staff. And he said that he holds daily remote conferences with his team, but he still communicates with the whole company over Facebook Workplace, which I think is really good to hear from such a huge company, that he's still, keeping contact with the employees, making sure they're okay. Because obviously it's difficult for everybody. And he spoke about how EasyJet are in constant communication with the European safety regulators regarding measures needed for flights to restart. So he was talking about how, one day flights are going to have to restart properly, but it needs to be safe to do so. So at least he's, doing all the right things.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, not all airlines have been as lucky. And Flybe, you might have heard about them, that they went into administration. That was 2 months after lockdown started. And they had over 2,000 employees and operated nearly 40% of UK domestic flights. So this has had a huge impact on travel, especially in the UK.
Yeah.
So, what are your opinions on the impacts that lockdown has had on the travel industry in particular? What do you think about that?
Well, personally, I think that it's obviously had a big impact. A lot of people haven't been able to go on holidays, and they haven't been able to spend time with their family. But I think it's also had a benefit to other businesses. People have had more disposable income to spend on other businesses. They've been able to, buy new cars, improve their homes, and they've been able to spend more. But yeah, I think obviously there has been a big disruption to the travel industry, and I think it will take a long time to get back to how it was, similar to the food industry.
Yeah. What do you think, Heather? Is there anything that
I think
the travel industry?
Yeah, possibly the travel industry is going to be one of the worst industries, because I think people are going to carry on for such a long time being more worried about that industry than others.
Yeah.
Just going for dinner at your local pub down the road, I don't think people will see as such a high threat as catching an aeroplane to a different country. So I think it could have an impact for another years to come, possibly. Yeah.
So you guys watching, what do you guys think? Do you think there's going to be a long-term issue with the travel industry? Do you think it will ever get back to how it was? Just let us know in the comments. Or if you have another question, ask us and we'll respond.
So, Jacob, do you want to talk about how COVID-19 has actually benefited any industries?
Yeah, so as I said, with the travel industry stopping, more people have money to spend. That has benefited other industries. But one industry that really benefited from this is communications. So, video conferences, software such as Zoom and Workplace, they've actually experienced a really high growth. So Zoom has actually experienced a 2,000% growth from January to April. Now, obviously, this is because everyone's going online to do the work, and people still have to communicate with their clients and the customers and their employees.
Yeah.
So these softwares have benefited a lot because they've got more users. They're getting obviously more subscriptions to these softwares. And they're also allowing businesses to connect with their employees and customers. But you guys in the chat, you guys watching, what do you use any virtual conferencing softwares? If you do, which ones? And can you let us know what you think about them? Do you think they're useful? Do you think they've helped you, carry on operating your business how you would have before? Just let us know. You guys, do you think video conference softwares are really useful or what?
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, obviously, because of lockdown, a lot of businesses have had to communicate online and remotely.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what happens in the future, to like whether there's going to be a bit of a change as to whether more businesses are going to remain more online than in person, because I think for some there's a convenience with that. Obviously it does bring about some issues where it can be difficult not being face to face and not being in an office with your other employees, because it's not the same. You don't get the same reaction. It's hard to communicate properly or over like a video conference and over like email or messaging. But I think it's been brilliant for this time to be able to keep businesses running.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has been really helpful to keep businesses just operating during this time, really. And I'm not sure whether businesses will want to go back to the way we were before, or whether it'll be part and part, really. I mean, it's definitely giving businesses many more options than they had before about how they want to operate. And how they want to carry out meetings with their staff, whether to travel and all the costs involved with that, or whether to just jump on an online call in the future.
Yeah. Well, with everything moving online, obviously there's been an impact on online sales. Orla, do you want to expand on that and tell us what's happened?
So back in April, that was like towards the beginning of lockdown, online sales increased by 109.6%. And then in May, they grew to 129.5% compared to last year, because that was when all non-essential shops were closing.
Yeah.
And this increase in online sales has meant that many businesses have started working online, like we've just been talking about. And that increases the demand in things like website development, because for some businesses who might not have been, online, didn't have an online presence before lockdown, we've seen that online actually brings another opportunity for more business.
Yeah.
So, having a website, that's important for a business if they're working online. So it opens doors for like digital marketing too. And videography is an area which supports marketing strategies, and that's important to use to showcase brands. And as we said at the beginning, Heather is our videographer at Mustang. So do you want to talk a little bit about videography and how lockdown might impact that, or how videography might help businesses in the future recovering from the issues that lockdown has brought?
Yeah, definitely. So I think businesses moving online who weren't online before is really a big step that will help their businesses in the future. Because of the society today, people just expect a business to be online, but for many small businesses, that wasn't the case. And now opening them up to all these new marketing methods, such as online websites and videography, is really going to help boost their sales during this time. So the videography kind of sector, I think, has been affected in many different ways kind of by lockdown, and it's really sector dependent on how they have been affected. So some sectors have probably seen a real boost. So for instance, the marketing sector, and for many like corporate companies, I think they've wanted to get a lot more videos out online to showcase their products during this time. So that's been really good. But then there's obviously been sectors such as the TV industry, where a lot of videographers work, that have had to possibly stop filming altogether for a few months. But yeah, it's really probably half and half with all the videographers out there, how they've been able to kind of continue during this time. And it's kind of finding like a new normal. So
Yeah,
they've had to like use a lot more skills, maybe learn new skills that they haven't used before, to kind of create videos from staying at home. Because if some news breaks, you can't just go out and film some first-hand footage of that area, and you can't be in the studio with your other colleagues bouncing ideas off each other and kind of helping you to get those design aspects right. So it's been like finding a new normal for most photographers, I'd say.
Yeah, that's great. I've just seen that a few more people have joined, so if anyone has any questions regarding how lockdown has impacted businesses, then please put them in the comment box. But also, we'd like to hear your opinions on it too, so that would be really great. So, do you want to talk about how lockdown has impacted some local businesses, Jacob?
Yeah, so as a team, Mustang went out, and we actually went out to interview different local businesses and see how the lockdown has affected them. So we interviewed many different people coming from all different sectors. So we tried to focus on small to medium businesses because we thought they would give more of a personal opinion on how they have been affected. And as Ola said, you guys watching now, how do you think the lockdown will impact small to medium businesses in the future? Do you think they're going to struggle? Do you think they're going to have to adapt? What do you guys think? Let us know. But Ola, do you want to tell them a bit about who you interviewed and what they had to say?
Yeah, so first of all, we spoke to someone called Michael Tracy, who is the owner of M Tracy Building Contractors Limited. And he said that the maintenance work on properties completely shut down for them because obviously they were struggling to get access to the properties. And however, they were quite prepared because they saw what was happening in Ireland and the rest of Europe like the week before. And he said that we knew it was going to come over to the UK, so we stocked up on basic roofing materials because that was one side of their business that could still operate.
Yeah.
So then during lockdown, obviously they were prepared, they knew what was coming, but they had the right things in place to keep working to an extent, even though other areas of the business couldn't operate. So then I also spoke to someone called Graham, who is the owner of Logic TPS, and he said that due to a lot of our clients are pharmaceutical companies, we were told very early on in lockdown that we weren't allowed to close because they needed our services. So this is more of like a positive impact because it actually meant that they were more busy than usual, and because of products like hand sanitizer, you know, everyone wanting to get some of that, so they were super busy.
Yeah.
Then finally, I spoke to John Blackburn, who is the owner of Precision Weighing Systems, and he said that overall our business has been very fortunate in the effects that lockdown has had on us, which is obviously really good to hear. However, their only problems were that on certain sites, because they have to go onto different sites to calibrate weighing equipment, some people weren't respecting social distancing. So that meant that it could be quite difficult for them, because that company, they wanted to respect the social distancing rules, whereas other companies weren't as tight on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I went out and I interviewed someone called Mike, and he was from Sheeran Bespoke, and they create different types of kitchens, and they do bespoke furniture. And he said that during this lockdown, they were frozen in time. They had workers placed on furlough, but they did get a government grant, which did help the business. But despite, production not really, they're not producing or manufacturing anything, they've actually got busier during lockdown. As I said before, because people aren't going on holidays, they have more money to spend on doing the house. So he's actually found that more people are willing to spend money with him rather than, going on a new holiday or traveling during the summer. So it's been quite positive for him, as well as being negative.
Yeah, I think that's like with every sector. There's going to be positive impacts and negative impacts, but it just depends on, the sector that they're in, how much they can work. But I've just seen in the chat that Steve has said, what options do small to medium businesses have to attract customers to their stores if they don't have a website like these larger ones? So with that, I think, you don't, if it's a small business, you don't necessarily need a website, even though, there's only good things that can come from a website. But they can use things like social media, emailing customers to keep them up to date, because during this time it's really essential to keep communicating to your customers, so they remember who you are, but also that means they know what's coming in the future for your business. And if you don't have social media or emailing, even things like flyers, or put up like signs in your shop window to let people know the details, and to make sure people are aware that you're following social distancing rules, because that will hopefully reassure people and encourage them to then come to your store when they're able to.
Yeah. No, I agree, but then again, I also think that small to medium businesses, it would be quite useful for them to have a website.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Especially now, people, they might be a bit scared of going into shops. So maybe a e-commerce website might be the way forwards for some small to medium businesses. But then it depends what your business is and what you sell and produce.
Yeah, and if they don't have a website, then there are other alternatives to communicate to customers or potential customers.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think during lockdown, a lot of the social media companies have actually set up ways in which you can sell your own products through there, which we mentioned in our Q&A last week. And for small businesses where a website would be a large cost, these social media platforms are free, and now there's ways on those which you're able to still sell products and engage with your customers without like large costs being involved of that.
As I say, thank you very much, Steve, for commenting. If there's anyone else watching, please drop your comments.
Yes, so the problems that businesses have experienced changes, like I said, depending on the sector they work within, and there is a wide variation of issues. However, the one thing that I think most businesses do have in common is that the future is unknown to an extent. So for the majority of people, they're unsure as to what lies ahead, and they can only prepare themselves to the best of their ability. So we can discuss and we can keep you up to date with things that are changing and new things that we hear about, but the future is just still unclear. So yeah.
I'd say this topic we're going to be talking about again, but in a bit more detail on Tuesday. So everyone watching now, just make sure that you tune in on Tuesday to see what other businesses have to say and to see the extended versions of our interviews.
Yeah.
Definitely let us know as well, if you're a business owner, how has your business been affected, and then that's something we can talk about on Tuesday.
We can bring that into
how you feel, whether about lockdown lifting, are you going to be going to the pub on the weekend, or are you going to be staying home?
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you next week.
Bye.